The night I met Clara Mae, I was half dead and half hoping it'd stay that way. The storm had rolled in from the north, thick as the breath of the Almighty himself, burying every fence post and coyote trail I ever knew. My horse went down first. Poor boy never even made a sound. Then came the cold, crawling through my coat like knives made of glass. I remember falling, the snow hitting my face and the world turning white, then black. Somewhere between the wind and the dark, I thought I heard her voice, soft, worried, human. "Mama, there's a man lying out there." A child's voice, clear as church bells in winter. When I opened my eyes again, I was inside a small cabin. Smoke from the hearth curled through the air, smelling of pine and bread. My chest burned, my head spun, and every bone in me ached like the devil had been swinging hammers. A woman sat beside me, brown hair, tired eyes, and hands that trembled just enough to tell the truth. "You're safe now," she said. "You were freezing out there." Safe. That word didn't mean much to me back then. I'd lost everything a man could lose, my ranch, my name, my reason to keep breathing. Folks said I was a millionaire once, but out here in the cold, money don't mean a damn thing. Only warmth does. Only kindness. I tried to speak, but my throat cracked like dry timber. She fed me a spoon of broth instead. The taste of life, simple and warm. Two little ones peeked from behind her skirts. The boy, maybe 8, with a stubborn stare, and a girl half his size clutching a wooden horse. They looked at me like I was some storybook ghost. The woman, Clara Mae, she said her name was, who didn't ask many questions, just worked, quiet and steady, like mercy itself had found hands to borrow. Now she kept the fire alive, changed my bandages, prayed low under her breath each night. Days passed, snow kept falling. My strength came back slow. I'd wake to the smell of coffee and the sound of Eli chopping wood outside, his little shoulders fighting the wind. June would hum a tune, soft and sweet, while Clara baked bread that never quite rose but filled the room with something close to hope. I tried to thank her once, told her I'd pay her for her trouble. She just shook her head. "Can't buy what's freely given," she said. That line stayed with me, heavier than any wound. Out here folks measure worth in acres and cattle, but Clara Mae measured it in kindness and in silence, the kind that heals more than it hurts. One night, when the storm finally broke, I stood by the door, watching the moon climb over the ridge. The snow glittered like a field of diamonds, and the air smelled clean again. Behind me, Clara's voice called out, soft as dusk, "You think you're strong enough to ride?" I turned, my hand on the door frame, and for the first time, I didn't know. Truth is, I wasn't ready to leave that little cabin, or the warmth I'd found there. Maybe it was just the firelight playing tricks. Maybe it was the way she looked at me, not like a man she saved, but one she pitied. Either way, something in me stirred again, something I thought long buried beneath the frost. And in that quiet desert of snow and breathing embers, I realized a man could still be lost even after he's been found. I didn't sleep much that winter. Some nights, when the fire burned low and the wind scraped the windows, I'd hear things that weren't there. Footsteps in the hall, laughter from another life. Clara Mae thought it was fever talk. Maybe it was. But truth is, some ghosts don't haunt houses. They haunt a man's rib cage, and they never stop walking. Her name was Evelyn. My wife. We built a ranch once, way down in Dry Creek Valley. Back then, the sky seemed endless, and I thought the world was something I could own if I worked hard enough. She used to plant sunflowers by the fence line every spring, saying they'd catch the light before I did. Then came the sickness, the kind that takes fast and leaves slow. I buried her under those same sunflowers, and when the last one wilted, I sold everything that was left. I told myself I was done with living. I rode where no one knew my name, looking for trouble or peace, whichever found me first. What I found instead, Shad, was that storm and Clara Mae's door. She never asked about the scar on my chest or the nightmares that woke me sweating. She just let me be quiet. That's a rare mercy in this world. Someone who don't ask where you've been, just hands you a cup of coffee and lets you remember in your own time. The children warmed to me first. Eli followed me like a pup, always asking about horses, guns, the kind of stories boys dream themselves into. June, she'd bring me scraps of paper with drawings, me on horseback, her mama smiling at the window. I'd laugh, though it hurt a little each time. Maybe she saw something I didn't yet. One afternoon, I tried to chop some firewood to pay back my keep. Didn't get far before Clara came out, hands on her hips, that look women get when they see a fool trying too hard. "You'll split your stitches wide open," she said. "Maybe that's what I'm good at," I told her. She smiled then, just barely. "That ain't a talent, Mr. Holloway. That's a habit." I reckon she was right. Men like me, we're built on bad habits and half-healed wounds. But there was something in her voice, soft as a hymn, that made me want to be better than I was. One night, while she mended my coat by lamplight, I caught her humming. A tune I hadn't heard since Evelyn's funeral. It hollowed me out, same as the wind hollows a canyon over years. When she looked up, I think she saw the storm in my eyes. She didn't ask a thing, just reached out, set her hand on mine, and said, "You can rest here, Colt. No one's expecting you to ride tomorrow." Her words lingered long after she left the room. I sat there, staring at the glow in the hearth, thinking maybe resting wasn't the same as quitting. Outside, the snow began to melt. Drip by drip, the world thawed, and so did something in me. But the thing about melting snow, it always leaves mud behind, and sooner or later, a man's got to walk through it. One morning, I saddled what horse I could borrow and rode into town for supplies. The folks there gave me the kind of looks that stick like burrs. Guess word had spread. A stranger living under a widow's roof don't make for clean talk in a small town. I tried not to let it bother me, but when I came back, Clara's face said she'd heard it too. "They don't understand," she said, her voice steady. "They don't have to," I told her, "but they'll make sure you pay for it." That night, I couldn't sleep again. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper from the past, asking me who I thought I was to find peace after burying love. And deep down, I knew. No matter how warm that cabin got, the cold inside me wasn't done yet. It was the night the fire came that I learned peace never stays long out here. The wind had died. The sky gone still, that kind of quiet you only hear before something bad happens. Eli was sleeping by the stove, June tucked beneath a quilt Claire had sewn from scraps of other winters. I was outside, mending a fence rail, when I caught a whiff of kerosene on the air. Then I saw it, orange tongues lapping at the barn. Flames roared up so fast it stole the breath from my chest. I ran, shouting for Clara. She came running with a bucket that didn't stand a chance. By the time we reached the door, the horses were screaming, the roof cracking. Eli tried to rush in, but I caught him by the collar. No, boy, ain't nothing left to save. We stood there, the four of us, watching every good thing burn to ash. And in that blaze, I saw the past I've been trying to bury. The greed, the betrayal, the faces of men who once called me partner. Next morning, I rode into town to see the sheriff. He wouldn't meet my eye. Said the fire looked suspicious, and maybe I'd brought my bad luck with me. Then came the lawyer. Clyde Bennett, slick smile, city boots, a man who could lie without moving his lips. He told me Jed Riker had filed a claim on Clara's land, saying the deed was false. And I knew right then the fire wasn't meant to scare us. It was meant to drive us out. When I told Clara, she went pale but didn't cry. We'll find another way, she said. But I could hear the break in her voice. That land was her husband's last gift, the only ground her children had ever called home. I offered to help, to stand up to Jed, to pay off the claim if I had to. She refused. You've done enough, Colt. Folks already think, nah, she stopped there. But I knew the rest. That night, the town held a gathering at the church. I went, though every look cut like barbed wire. Jed Riker stood near the altar, holding a piece of paper high. This here deed's worthless, he said, grinning. Belongs to me now. Seems the widow's been keeping a rich man for company. The room stirred, whispers spreading like snakes through dry grass. I stepped forward, feeling every eye turn. She saved my life, I said low and steady. If that's a sin, then maybe this town's forgotten what decency means. Jed laughed. You talk big for a man who lost everything. Guess some dogs can't learn new tricks. I didn't hit him, though I wanted to. Instead, I laid my gun on the floor. I ain't here to fight, I said, but I ain't leaving her to burn. The preacher tried to speak, but the room had already decided. By dawn, every door in town was shut to us. No flour, no nails, no mercy. Clara packed what little we had left, her hands trembling, but her eyes fierce. We'll start again, she said. I nodded, though the truth sat heavy in my gut. I brought this storm to her doorstep. That night, I rode out alone, leaving her and the children behind. Thought maybe distance could keep them safe. The desert swallowed me up again. Days blurred to nights, and nights to silence. Each mile I rode, I heard Evelyn's voice and Clara's overlap. One ghost, one living, both asking the same thing. When will you stop running, Colt? Somewhere near the ridge, I found a letter in my coat. Clara must have slipped it there before I left. It was short. Only said, don't carry it alone. I read it 3 times before folding it back. The words felt like a hand reaching through the dark, and for the first time since Evelyn's grave, I turned the horse around. By the time I saw the ridge again, the snow had melted into mud, and the valley below looked worn out, same as me. The cabin roof sagged. The barn was nothing but charred beams, and smoke still lingered like a ghost that wouldn't leave. Clara Mae stood out front, shovel in hand, her skirt spattered with soot and stubbornness. When she saw me riding in, she didn't wave, didn't have to. Some things don't need words. I thought you'd gone for good, she said, voice flat as the plains. I tried to, I answered her. Didn't take. She looked at me a long while, like she was weighing whether to curse me or thank me. Finally, she said, "If you're staying, we work. If you're leaving again, best do it before the sun goes down." So I stayed. We rebuilt what we could. Eli carried boards, June fetched nails, and I hammered until my hands split. Neighbors still turned their backs, but every swing of that hammer felt like defiance. At night, I'd sit on the porch, listening to the crickets, wondering when the next blow would come. Didn't have to wait long. One afternoon, a wagon rolled up. The sheriff, Clyde Bennett, sitting beside him, and Jed Riker smiling like a rattler. They said they'd come for the deed, claiming Clara's land was sold fair and square. I told them that was a lie, and I could prove it. Clyde chuckled. You're a dead man playing cowboy, Holloway. Your name's Mud. You got no rights here. Maybe he was right, but truth's heavier than paper. I pulled a folded letter from my coat. Evelyn's old note to me, the one that saved my ranch years ago. She'd signed over every acre I owned in Dry Creek to my name alone. That same property I'd sold to Jed once, before his greed burned it all down. "Your claim," I said, handing him the page, "is built on ashes, same as your soul." The sheriff read it, frowned, then looked up at me. "Looks legal," he muttered. Jed's face went red. "You can't prove nothing." "Maybe not," I said, "but you can't erase what you did." He lunged for me, but the sheriff stepped between us. "Enough," he barked. "I'll take this to the county judge. Till then, the widow keeps her land." When they left, Clara sagged against the fence, relief mixing with disbelief. I didn't say a word, just handed her my hat and took her shovel. Sometimes that's all a man can offer. That night, we sat by the fire, the first we lit since the blaze. Eli leaned against my shoulder, June asleep in her mama's lap. For a while, there was only the crackle of wood and the hum of a woman too tired to cry. "Why'd you come back?" she asked finally. I stared into the flames. "Because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't." She nodded slow, like she understood more than she wanted to. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Maybe you ain't meant to save the world, Colt. Maybe you're just meant to save one small piece of it." Her words hit harder than any bullet. I've been riding all my life looking for redemption. Never realized it might be waiting at a kitchen table with a cracked cup and two sleepy kids. Outside, the wind shifted, warm for the first time in months. I reckon the storm had finally passed. And as I watched Clara fix a loose braid in June's hair, I thought, maybe this was what home felt like. Not land, not money, not forgiveness, just staying, and meaning it. Spring came slow that year, shy as a fawn stepping from the trees. The earth still smelled of smoke, but green had started pushing through the black. Every morning, I'd ride the fence line, watching the sun bleed gold over the ridge, and think maybe the world hadn't given up on us after all. Clara Mae planted wildflowers where the barn once stood. Said it'd remind the land it could still bloom after burning. I didn't argue. Some things are better planted than spoken. The children grew quick. Eli taller, shoulders square, already talking about fixing fences like his daddy once did. June would chase the chickens barefoot, laughing loud enough to wake the ghosts that had lingered too long. When she laughed like that, even the air seemed to soften. The town changed too, little by little. Neighbors started nodding again. A sack of flour left on the porch one day. A hammer borrowed without asking the next. Maybe guilt, maybe grace. It didn't matter much. What mattered was that people were remembering kindness again. One Sunday, the preacher rode up with a grin. Said the church bell hadn't rung for a wedding since before the fire, and maybe it was time. Clara blushed, near dropped her basket of apples. I just smiled. Reckon I'd need to ask first. She didn't answer with words, just reached for my hand, calloused fingers finding mine, soft and sure. That was all the answer I needed. We married under the old cottonwood by the creek. No music, no preacher speech longer than a prayer. Eli held the ring. June threw wildflowers she picked herself. The sky stretched wide and blue like it wanted to keep the moment safe. When it was done, Clara whispered, "You kept your promise." I said, "Didn't make one." She smiled. Then maybe that's why it means something. That night, after everyone'd gone, I stayed out by the porch, watching the stars shake loose from the dark. The air was warm, the kind that smells of rain and second chances. Clara came out, laid a blanket round my shoulders, and sat beside me. Neither of us said much. Didn't have to. I thought about all the trails I'd ridden, all the winters I'd wasted looking for a place to rest. Turns out rest ain't a place, it's a person. Someone who doesn't ask you to forget, just lets you stop running. She leaned her head into my arm. You think the past ever truly leaves us? I shook my head, no, ma'am. But I reckon it learns to walk beside us a little quieter. The cricket started up, and the creek whispered through the reeds. In that hush between heartbeats, I knew the desert inside me had finally found its rain. Maybe love ain't about holding on. It's about learning to let go gentle